This is titled Future Food Innovation, and it's deliberately titled Choices because this is about presenting a little bit of a vision about where we need to end up and to getting engaging with you, society, as to how we make the choices to actually end up and create what we want to create in 10, 20, 30 years' time. So, following that, I'll just re-emphasize some of which you heard this morning, but putting out what is about a sustainable future bioeconomy for society. The aim, and this is from the Horizon 2020 program, the European program that started in 2013. And this is how they defined it, and this is a nice learning curve. But the important part's up there. This is to meet the requirements of the citizens and the environment. And we've got the safe, healthy, affordable food. But you've also got that more sustainable, while still being competitive, using less resources. And importantly, considering the cultural component of food. So food is not about production, just about production. In a society, food is at the very, very centre of our cultural interactions. And when we go forward, we actually have to design our future with that in mind. The question of how, and again, I'm just going to pull that from the Horizon 2020 program, and that just follows directly. You have to focus on healthy and safe food, informed consumer choices, and dietary solutions. This is what Nuala was talking about this morning. Food is really, really at the centre of a lot of the health issues that we are facing, and it has to be part of the solutions. But at the bottom there, the environment, using less resources, less additives, producing less byproducts. So we can't just go for the idealistic, this is what a nice added value food product should be that we can sell to the world. We actually have to take that wider view of its impact on the society. And this is clearly saying that to develop the social license around what we produce and how we produce it is important in our future work. The global trends, I've given an example from the Dutch agri-food industry there, following straight on this again. This is about and it's worldwide, cleaner, healthier, safer, stronger. But the ones that we don't pay a lot of attention to are down the bottom there, the smarter and the fairer. We have to think, how do we get our food, agri-food systems, our interactions smarter, but also fairer? How does food not only deliver to the economy, but what Fred Gale was talking about this morning, when we have the economic value, but food has to deliver beyond that economic value into the environmental values, into the societal values as well. The question is, how do we do food innovation that ends up at that point? This is where we are at the moment, well, where we were 2 years ago, being the latest figures. This is Tasmanian food production, as measured economically. But you can see in that the three big ones are beef, dairy and salmon. Together they are well over 50% of the Tasmanian food economy. This is the farm gate or at beach value. This is the gross production value of those products. So we know that they are going forward. The salmon industry has a vision, and it's already well beyond that 704 million there. It's going well beyond a billion. And beef prices have gone up, and dairy is in there as well. So we know that we will have those big players going forward. But when we look at, that's the farm gate value. When we look at the actual processed food value, the added value, It's gone from 2 billion to 4 billion. It's about 50, it's doubled. There, you can still see that beef, dairy, and salmon are a significant portion, but they're just around the 50% now. What you've got is there's a big rise in the others, the added value. Chocolate. Chocolate is a really, really big added value product of Tasmania. Beer, wine, potatoes. So we have these other added value products in there, and our future innovations have to take account of how we do that. The point I'd like to make here is the difference between our commodity value at 2 billion and the added value at 4 billion is only doubling it. In a mature economy, that added value should be approximately 4 times. In other words, we are predominantly selling off our product as commodity low value added, and that is one of the big challenges. If we get double the added value and double the added value again, we are using a lot less of that resource. You don't double the land value to double the added value, the land utilization or the inputs of phosphates or fertilizers. We can fix those, but double and triple the added value. So that's a key need. How do we make more value from what we've got rather than trying to extend up the production base into the future? But there's also a few other things in there. If history is anything to go by, commodities in agriculture and an agricultural economy like Tasmania rises and falls on those world market prices. We have to buffer ourselves, get resilience to those, diversifying the product base, bringing in the connection between the food, the tourism, and the other benefits that we can get from that flow from the food. But the other one there, and again we're talking about this in the bioeconomy for society, is how we capture more of that value in terms, economic and other terms, back into the local community and improve that social license and build that social license. Where are we starting from? Well, we've got a few innovation advantages. We are, as has been referred to, we're an island state, a single university. We have a much higher degree. We can always improve it, but our crosstalk, our integration between research and government and industry is actually very, very good. I know we can improve that in terms of the social interaction and the social discussion. But we have this focus on Tasmania. There's a discussion that we might take for granted, but it's actually pretty high on the agenda here, that the discussion is around what is good for Tasmania. And locally, we have some specialisations which give us some advantages for going into the future. Our blue economy, our green economy, and the fact that into the future of climate change, we have the guaranteed water as a key development plank going forward. We know we're going into that high value speciality production. We've got some good stuff going forward. How do we build on that? The wider bioproducts, not everything can be put into a added value tourist market, but we can look at how we turn more of that wood chip, etc., into greater product value. But also in terms of integrating with society, how we pull that agri-food tourism sector together and integrate it more. So, focus areas, and this is a personal view. See, I think we've gone twice there. This is a personal view. So there are other possible ones here, and we can open that up for debate later. But here's some ideas. developing Tasmania as a delicatessen, and I'll go into each one of these, guaranteeing safety and provenance, exceeding consumer expectations, etc. So what does that actually mean? So Tasmania is a delicatessen. You will hear this increasingly. It's being talked about as we don't sell commodity. We're going to sell to that smaller percentage of consumers, preferably offshore, that will value the product as coming from Tasmania, that will be prepared to pay for the luxury level, the rarity level, the story behind the food. This is important. We do produce enough food we've got almost just under 600,000 people here. We produce enough food for 3 to 4 million people. And we don't want to be selling that off as the commodity. We want to be putting this into the higher value market. And that fits precisely with the story about Tasmania, brand Tasmania, the agri-tourism continuum. And of course, there's a lot of this already. There's a lot of development, ginseng, truffles, specialty chocolate, the high-value grass-fed meat there. We're going increasingly into fermentation products. The Tasmanian wine brand is worth 20-30% above the average. And of course, salmon naturally fits into that. So that's one of the ideas. Tasmania is a delicatessen. We have to keep with that. But we can't go beyond that, safety and provenance. The two go hand in hand. Safety has to be taken for granted. It's a hidden cost, but you can talk about it and recover that value by talking about it and building it into the whole brand story. Because safety that's hidden is, it's not a wasted cost, it's a protection of your brand, but we can pull it up and actually market ourselves by the safe, the safety and the provenance. And well, Bellamy's organic infant formula there is largely produced in New Zealand because we don't actually have an organic dairy industry for the future. It's important that these are all credence values, and anytime you make these guarantees and claims, you have to have a way of validating them so that the public actually can see that information, that it's actually believable, it's updated, and it builds that value. And of course, that whole story again integrates with the agri-food tourism. So, exceeding consumer expectations, that's another way about superior produce. If we're going to brand ourselves up at the high end, we have to do the development not to meet spec, but to exceed the spec. Agricultural specifications are about getting enough product out to meet the consumer grade. And we don't actually sell a lot of product off as superior added value grade. We've got to get to grips with how to do that. We have to do that right from the breeding all the way through. Exceeding consumer expectations can involve other things as well, including the health value. So, but to do this, it has to be a whole of chain approach. And from breeding all the way through to growing and processing, you can actually focus on health as an outcome, as a value out of agriculture, equally as well as economic cost. I've focused on this for many years because the health aspects of most foods are only 1 to 2% of the energy budget of the food. So you can manipulate the health content without altering the productivity. You just have to value it as a target. So beyond that breeding for health and processing for health, there are the wider aspects. As Nuala mentioned, we are driven by our certain history and genes, and we have to do that consumer education for healthy choices. We do have a choice, but the drivers for it have to be out there. They have to be understood. We have to get at them young. but also there's no good having the healthy choice out there if people don't have the equality of access to healthy food. That's very important that we not only produce it, we actually make it available. But my real passion here in this context is increasing the local value capture. It's no good if you just have the farm pushing it out and the rest of society doesn't actually benefit. Increasing the local value capture is automatically doubled when you start processing locally. When you start building brand value around the Tasmanian brand so it adds to the value, and the agri-food tourism again. So there are a number of things that you can look at here. Originally it was potatoes. Potatoes were successful because the crop stores well, and you didn't have to do much in order to hold it from one season to the next. But we've moved on from potatoes, and we went to potato chips. In the 1970s, potato chips were the height of added value. For the first time, you could have the convenience of going and getting those potato chips. And Tasmania was and still is a major industry which keeps us going. But we've got to move. It's now one of the cheapest foods in the supermarket. We've got to move on. And for that, this is Idaho. But the ready meals, the ready to use, the convenience values have to be added in on top. And one of the things, just to round up, we've got the agri-food tourism with the integration of the harvest markets, but that's just our local, that's our sandpit, that's our learning curve. What we want to do is, and the work we're doing is putting it into those ready meals and doing this bypassing the supermarket direct to the consumer. If we stabilise those foods, it's much more available for equal access. It's also more available to send it directly to the consumer in China and capture more of that value. And for soon to be announced, we do have a major program in terms of developing a ready meal development here in Tasmania in association with Defence. So that's the future of food innovation, and what we really have to focus on is what the university can do in the way of providing enablers to make that happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob.